Hello again. Not so long ago, power cuts were a minor inconvenience rather than a cause of major upheaval. Older viewers will remember that in the early 1970s, power cuts in Britain were just one of those things. They happened during miners' strikes in 1972, 1973, and 1974. The electricity went off and we relied on oil lamps and candles. It was no big deal. It was a bit of a laugh, really. Some people remember those times with nostalgia. Of course, times are very different now. For without electricity, everything grinds to a halt. You can't even pay for things in a shop because, of course, most transactions are now electronic. And you couldn't get any money out even if you wanted to because the ATMs are also powered by electricity. Without electricity, you can't buy even a pint of milk. When the electricity stops, so does everything else. We saw that yesterday in Portugal and Spain, and a sobering sight it was too. Both countries ground to a halt, as did parts of France, Belgium, and the Netherlands. It was more than just an amusing and light-hearted annoyance the way it was 50 years ago. These days, a power cut means that society can no longer function. There is an awful warning to us in this country. Although nobody really knows what caused the power failure in Spain and Portugal, we can see what happens when the power does fail, and it wasn't good. We in Britain are currently in the grip of one of those mad delusions like the trans business, in which we pretend that it's possible to run a modern, developed country in the 21st century by means of windmills and water wheels, or hydroelectric generators and wind turbines as they are known today. It's clear that with the increasing amount of electricity required to operate heat pumps and charge electric cars and so on, that this is little more than a mad fantasy. Notwithstanding this, several laws have been passed in Britain which bind us to becoming net zero within 25 years. Things such as the 2008 Climate Change Act and so on. We now see what can go wrong. A week ago, Spain was boasting that for the first time on a weekday, the country had been powered entirely by renewable energy sources. I give a link to a news item about this in the description to this video. This feat, relying entirely upon wind, hydroelectric power and solar energy, was achieved on April the 15th. A few days later, Spain managed another landmark with the amount of electricity generated by solar power reaching a peak. And then a week later, the entire country loses all its power. This may, of course, be pure coincidence, but that doesn't really alter the message, which is that when electricity stops, we're in serious trouble. You really can't take the risk of relying entirely on the wind blowing or the sun shining. Most of the time you might be okay, but if one region runs out of wind or sunshine, then it might have to draw power from somewhere else, and this can create a cascade of demands which can turn into a crisis. This is why it's so important not to depend entirely on renewable sources, of course. 5 minutes before that power cut in Spain, 60% of their electricity was being generated by solar power, and then in a moment it was all gone. The provisional explanation for what has happened involves weather. It's claimed that the hot sunshine caused some strange effect on the electricity wires, which in turn caused the power cut. But this sounds a bit odd to me. I have no real expectation that this will make any difference to the crazy stampede toward net zero in this country, but can hope.